Sometimes we believe that intimacy is just a matter of bodies meeting, of skins brushing, of desire that gets consumed. But when you're with the right person, something deeper happens, something that goes far beyond the physical. It's as if two energies recognize each other, as if something inside you, something you may have forgotten, awakens. It's not just an emotional connection. It's not simply feeling comfortable. It's the mysterious certainty that this person didn't arrive by chance. At that moment, the soul expresses itself without words. And even though you don't say it, even though not a single phrase is spoken, there is a silent, spiritual communication that confirms you're in the right place. It's as if both of you had been walking parallel lines for years, separately searching for answers, until finally, fate crosses your paths. And it's not just about sharing a moment of passion. It's about opening an invisible portal between two inner worlds that reflect, nourish, and transform each other. Carl Jung spoke of an ancient wisdom that activates within us when we meet someone who touches our essence. It's not a romantic idea. It's a deeply symbolic experience. It's as if your entire unconscious aligns to tell you that there's something you must live. Not something to understand with logic, but something that transforms you from the inside out. That's why, with some people, the intimate act becomes sacred. Because it's no longer just a body surrendering. It's the soul naked, with an honesty that both frightens and liberates at the same time. With the right person, your soul isn't afraid to show itself. You don't feel the need to protect yourself, to pretend, to hold back what you truly are. It's as if this connection creates a safe space where you can give yourself fully without reservations, not only physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and energetically. And that's something that doesn't happen every day. In fact, some people spend years, even a whole lifetime, without experiencing that kind of intimacy. Not because they don't desire it, but because they settle for superficial connections that don't touch their true being. When you finally meet someone who awakens your vital energy, something changes inside you. Your heart beats differently, your breath synchronizes with theirs, and your thoughts calm down. It's not just desire that you feel, it's presence. It's the certainty of being exactly where you're meant to be. And in that moment, even though everything around you may disappear, you know that something spiritual is unfolding, something you can't explain, but can't deny either. This kind of connection doesn't always come wrapped in idealized romance. Sometimes it arrives with storms, with doubts, with fear. Because when someone touches your soul, they inevitably touch your wounds as well. And that can be overwhelming. But even in the midst of the emotional chaos that intimacy with the right person can awaken, there's a clarity you cannot ignore. This connection has a greater purpose than you. You're not here to simply enjoy or suffer. You're here to transform. Intimacy with the right person is a deep mirror. It shows you who you truly are, without masks, without pretensions, without shields. And you won't always like what you see, but if you dare to look, if you allow yourself to feel everything without judgment, without running away, then you will begin to heal. Because what happens spiritually in that moment is precisely an internal reconfiguration. It's as if your soul, recognizing itself in the other, reorganizes itself to return to its original form, the form that was distorted by years of fear, trauma, and denial. And no, it's not about the other person saving you. That's the illusion many buy into. It's about the other person helping you remember. Because when you're with the right person, you don't lose yourself in them. You find yourself. They don't absorb you, they reveal you. And the most beautiful thing of all is that this encounter propels you toward your deepest truth. A truth that was always within you, but needed that spiritual contact to activate it. There's a truth that few are willing to accept. Not every intimate connection transforms, but when it does, you know it without anyone telling you. You feel it in your skin, but also in your breath, which slows down, in your mind, which finally stops fighting, and in your soul, which for a moment stops searching. Because when you're with that person, your inner self no longer needs to be defensive. You're no longer trying to protect something. You're letting it happen. There's no more need to play roles, to hide the pain, to pretend security. With that person, intimacy is not just an act. It's a sacred ritual where you disarm yourself to begin again. It's curious how the body recognizes what the mind hasn't yet understood. Maybe that's why, when you're near someone who resonates with you, you don't need logical explanations. It just happens. There's a language that doesn't use words, a kind of silent agreement between your deepest memories and theirs. You didn't plan it, you didn't expect it, but it finds you. And when it happens, many things that once seemed to make sense begin to lose importance. You no longer obsess over control. You no longer need to force things. You realize that the soul has never followed the calendar or the rules or the list. It's only patiently waited for the moment when it can finally recognize itself in another. In that moment, every intimate experience becomes an act of healing, not because the other person cures you, but because they give you the space to see yourself. And that, deep down, is what we are all searching for. To be seen, not from appearance, not from need, but from the soul. To be touched, not by hands that wish to possess, but by gazes that know how to hold. When this happens, when you feel you can be yourself even in your most exposed vulnerability, that's when transformation begins. That person, unknowingly, becomes a catalyst. They didn't come to complete you, they came to activate you. And you didn't come to fill voids, you came to remember, because everything was already inside you, but you had forgotten it. You had gotten lost in duties, fears, and unresolved wounds. And then someone appears who doesn't promise answers, but with their mere presence, invites you to ask the right questions. They don't give you security, but they awaken the courage to stop running. They don't save you, but they accompany you while you do it yourself. And that is true intimacy, a space where two people dare to be real, not perfect, not complete, but real. Where wounds are not hidden but named with tenderness. Where silence doesn't discomfort but holds. Where bodies are not used to cover voids, but offered as bridges between internal worlds ready to connect. With that person, there's no hurry, no masks, no strategies to be liked. There is truth, there is presence, there is soul. There is something mysterious that happens when you stop using intimacy to distract yourself and begin to live it as an experience of expansion. You no longer consume yourself in passion for fear of abandonment. You no longer give yourself so they don't leave. You no longer seduce to be chosen. You simply are. And what is born from that is something that cannot be fabricated. It is something you feel, that you honor, that you care for. Because with the right person, the spiritual does not impose itself. It reveals itself. It is not planned, it is allowed. And you, without realizing it, begin to change. Your way of looking at yourself, your way of inhabiting your body, your way of breathing. You even discover yourself lighter, more connected, more awake. And then you understand that not all encounters are the same. Some bodies touch you and leave, but there is one that when it touches you, opens the doors to your soul. There is a type of intimacy that is unforgettable, not because it was perfect, but because it was real, because it touched places in you that even you had forgotten, places that don't get activated by just anyone, because they are protected by time, by pain, by all the layers your soul has built to survive. And yet, that person arrives, and without asking for permission, without even knowing it, finds the way to the deepest part of you. They don't enter by pushing. They enter by looking, listening, staying. The spiritual does not always manifest with fireworks. Sometimes it's the calm that confirms to you that something is happening, a calm that doesn't numb, that doesn't hide, a calm that embraces. With that person, intimacy doesn't generate doubts, but certainties. It doesn't make you feel insecure, but more yourself. It's as if, for the first time, you lower your shoulders, as if your body can finally rest from so many internal battles. You're not trying to prove anything. You're not trying to meet expectations. You're simply breathing, feeling, living something your soul already recognized even before you knew it. In that shared space, something begins to organize. Not outside, but inside. And you realize that often it wasn't the lack of love that had harmed you, but the habit of giving yourself to places where you weren't seen, where your presence was tolerated but not celebrated, where your soul was invisible behind desire. And now, in front of this unexpected connection, you understand that true intimacy doesn't demand sacrifices or tests. It doesn't set conditions. It invites you to do. And in that invitation, a new version of you begins to emerge. Not a better one, but a more authentic, more connected one. That person doesn't come to save you from yourself. They come to remind you that you don't need to be saved. That everything you are, with your light, your wounds, your doubts, is worthy of love. And then something inside you loosens, as if an invisible string you've been tightening for years finally lets go. It's not magic, it's truth. And truth, when lived in intimacy, becomes sacred. You may not understand why this connection affects you so much. You may even try to resist it, doubt it, question it. But it's futile. What the soul recognizes, the mind cannot erase. And deep inside, you know this is not common. This is not just another encounter. It's a door, a possibility, a mirror that not only shows you who you are, but who you can become if you dare to follow this path of deep connection. True intimacy is not limited to the moment of physical contact. It remains afterward. It stays in your body, in your mind, in your heart. It transforms you without you realizing it. You begin to see yourself differently, to speak to yourself differently, to move through the world with a softness you didn't know before, because you're no longer seeking approval. You're experiencing presence, and that changes everything. With the right person, time stops being a measure, because in seconds, you can live what you didn't feel with others in years. Not because the other is perfect, but because you're ready. Because both of you have reached the exact point in the path where you could meet, without filters, without armor, without fear. And when that happens, it doesn't matter how long it lasts. What matters is what it awakens, what it opens, what it leaves. Not everyone is ready to live this kind of intimacy. Many sabotage it unknowingly, not because they don't want it, but because it terrifies them. It confronts them. It strips them bare beyond the flesh. Because when someone sees your soul, you can no longer hide behind your achievements. From your practiced smile, from your arguments, it exposes yourself. And if you are not ready to see who you really are, it's easier to escape than to hold the gaze. That's why some people distance themselves just when things begin to get real. It's not rejection, it's fear. Fear of being touched for real, fear of discovering yourself without disguises. But you're not here to repeat patterns. You're here to break them, to choose differently, to allow yourself to live an experience that doesn't need logical explanation, because you are already feeling it in every cell of your body. And when you open yourself to that, when you stop protecting yourself from love and begin to inhabit it, your soul begins to vibrate on a new frequency, a frequency that doesn't adapt to transactional relationships or empty bonds. It only resonates with the authentic, with what nourishes, with what transforms. And that's when you discover that the spiritual is not a distant or mystical concept. It's happening here, now, between breaths, between gestures, between shared silences, in the way that person touches you without invading, in the way they listen to you without interrupting, in how they look at you when you're not doing anything, just being. These small moments, when they're real, are worth more than 1,000 promises, because they're not trying to convince you. They're accompanying you. Accompanying you is not about carrying you or saving you. It's walking by your side. knowing that both are supporting each other in a sacred space where there's no need to have all the answers or be strong all the time, where you can cry without feeling weak, where you can laugh without measuring your volume, where you can be yourself without apologizing for it. When you live this deep intimacy, you realize that the body is no longer a tool for conquest, but a bridge of spiritual expression. Every caress, every shared breath, every pause in the middle of the encounter, everything makes sense. Everything communicates something that words cannot reach. And you feel it, not because you understand it, but because you recognize it. Because you had already dreamed it, perhaps in silence, perhaps without knowing it. But now you are living it, and even though the world out there keeps running, you choose to stay in this moment. You don't need to go anywhere. You're not looking for the future, nor fleeing from the past. You're here. You're present, and finally, you feel you belong. That this moment is not a coincidence, but a response to everything you've lived, to everything you've let go of, to everything that prepared you for this moment. This kind of connection is not sought, it's allowed. And when it arrives, you don't need to fully understand it to know that it's real. You just have to embrace it, because what is true doesn't shout, doesn't demand, doesn't impose. It simply stays, and you know it, because something inside of you has aligned, and you no longer want less than that. It is impossible to live such an experience and remain the same. Something inside of you settles, as if you've finally found a melody that's always been playing in some silent corner of your soul. It's not something that can be explained, it's something that is lived. And once you experience it, you can no longer settle for what doesn't touch you inside, what doesn't elevate you, what doesn't awaken you. Because now you know that something more exists. Not all bonds are the same. Not all closeness is real. And there are presences that not only caress your skin, but that transcend time, fears, and stories, and reach you exactly where you needed it most. This type of intimacy is not measured by frequency or duration. It's measured by depth, by the mark it leaves, by its ability to bring you back to yourself, to that you who had been put on pause, who had been forgotten amid routines and expectations. Because in the middle of that encounter, your essence feels welcomed. You don't have to hide your thoughts or your most uncomfortable emotions. You can speak from your center. You can look without lowering your gaze. You can breathe without asking for permission. And that's what truly transforms. Freedom, not to do whatever you want, but to be who you are, without fear. And when someone offers you that without asking for it, without demands, without manipulation, you're facing something that you cannot take lightly. Because the authentic is fragile, and when it presents itself, the least you can do is honor it. It doesn't mean everything is perfect. It means it's real. It means there's room for contradictions, for good days and cloudy days. That the connection doesn't disappear at the first conflict, but strengthens when both decide to stay, to look at each other, to speak from the soul. That is rare. That is valuable. That is what the soul recognizes as home. Sometimes, in the middle of intimacy with the right person, things emerge that you haven't felt in years, or that you've never allowed to surface. Tears you didn't know you were holding back, sighs you had forgotten to release. Because there is something in that connection that activates ancient memories, not only your own, sometimes even memories that you don't understand, but that weigh heavily. It's as if your body knows that in this space, it can release, it can let go of what it has been holding for so long. And it's not weakness, it's healing. It's true surrender, one that doesn't imply defeat, but liberation. And then you realize that the most spiritual experience you've had was not a ceremony, nor a meditation, nor a distant mystical experience. It was being there, skin to skin, breathing alongside someone who doesn't ask for anything from you, but transforms everything because they allow you to be. And in that being, the most sacred thing that can happen between two souls occurs, recognizing each other. After living something like this, you can no longer look at intimacy with the same eyes, because now you know what it feels like when two souls meet without masks, when there's no need for words to feel at home, when a shared silence can be more healing than 1,000 conversations. You don't need proof, you don't need certainties, you just feel, and in that feeling, you find a peace that no logic can offer. And then, without realizing it, you begin to choose differently, not out of whim, not out of fear, but because you've already tasted the real, the deep, the nourishing. And that changes your standards. It's no longer about finding someone who desires you. It's about finding someone who sees you, who holds you, who listens to you, even when you don't know how to explain what you feel. Someone who doesn't run away when the spiritual begins to manifest, when the connection starts to transform every corner of your life. Because this type of intimacy, when it's true, inevitably changes you. It doesn't transform you into someone else. It brings you back to yourself, to who you are when you're not acting, to what you feel when you're not pretending, to what you dream when no one interrupts you. And in that place, which is yours, which is intimate, which is sacred, you discover that love is not a destination. It's a state, a way of inhabiting life, of breathing each moment with awareness, of honoring your soul and the others without fear. If you've already lived this, you know. And if you haven't found it yet, don't despair, because these kinds of encounters come when you're also ready to hold them. Not before, not by force. They come when you've healed enough to stop seeking from scarcity, but from abundance. When you no longer give yourself to be chosen, but because you chose to love yourself first. And from there, everything changes. And if what you just heard resonated with you, if at some point in this message you felt something inside you light up or loosen, I want to invite you to be part of something greater. This space is not just a channel. It's a meeting point for those who want to go beyond the superficial, for those who feel there is something within them that wants to awaken. And you're here for a reason. Share this video with someone who you think needs to hear this, with that person who may have forgotten what it means to be truly touched. Leave your comment. Tell me which part touched you the most, what you lived, what you felt, because your words might be the reflection another soul needs to find itself. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Join this community where each message is a bridge to a more conscious, more authentic, more yours life. Activate the bell so you don't miss what's coming, because this is just beginning. And together, with each voice, with each shared story, we can touch more souls. We can awaken more hearts and remind each other that the spiritual is not in the sky nor in the future. It's in the now, in how we choose to love, to look, to touch, and to live each encounter with truth. Thank you for being here.